You better sit down for this one. Disney's Snow White disaster is just a gift that keeps on giving, and the face of the film, Rachel Zegler, is digging the franchise into even greater trouble. So what happened this time? Well, amid a slew of leftist meltdowns over Donald Trump's electoral victory, Rachel decided to up the ante by posting a series of deranged verbal meltdowns on her Instagram feed, only to then later apologize and pretend nothing ever happened. But it was too late, and those few hours were enough to create a media storm that has got Disney in damage control mode. So here's what she wrote in part, quote, "I find myself speechless in the midst of this. Another 4 years of hatred leaning us towards a world I do not want to live in. Leaning us toward a world that will be hard to raise my daughter in." She doesn't have a daughter. "Leaning us towards a world that will force her to have a baby she doesn't want, even though she doesn't have this daughter. Leaning us toward a world that is fearful. I shouldn't be this shocked, but I am. I'm heartbroken for my friends who awoke fear this morning, and here I am with you to cry, to yell, to hug, to wax poetic on how the left continues to fail us in forging the new path forward. This loss should not have been, and it certainly should not have been so many votes." Clearly, the more Rachel Zegler speaks, the more she sinks into the quicksand of her own political naivete, and that's why she's being clowned and trolled online by people like Nerdrotic and Critical Drinker for this farcical and overdramatic plea to her audience to give her some much-needed attention. By the way, this is a great time to subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, because we're scouring for news stories just like this where the mainstream media will not look. Now, if you've been following the whole Snow White disaster with Disney, you probably understand that the reboot of the franchise has become a case of being damned if you do, damned if you don't for the company. They've already sunk hundreds of millions of dollars on the new film, moved the release date several times, fired several actors, and started from scratch to now somehow release the film next year and get it over with. And every single time Rachel Zegler has come up with a way to strike at the knee of those efforts at the cost of her own career. And here's where it all started 2 years ago when Rachel outright trashed the original Snow White film, the plot and the characters in an interview leading to backlash from fans of the original.
I know that you've told me before that your version of Snow White is different and it's more of a 2022 version of Snow White. What did you mean by that?
I mean, you know, the original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her.
Yeah.
Weird.
Super weird.
So we didn't do that this time.
So no prince, or a different kind of prince?
We have a different approach to what I'm sure a lot of people will assume is a love story, just because, like, we cast a guy in the movie.
Right.
Andrew Burnap, great dude.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that I think everyone's going to have their assumptions about what it's actually going to be, but it's really not about the love story at all, which is really, really wonderful. And whether or not she finds love along the way is anybody's guess until 2024. All of Andrew's scenes could get cut. Who knows? It's Hollywood, baby. But it's...
So what's left to connect the reboot to the original other than just the name? Well, in fact, last year an interesting picture leaked from the sets of the film, and it sent people into a frenzy. For one, the dwarves in the Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs were replaced by just normal-sized people, and they looked nothing like the animated version of them were imagined. Not just that, it also resulted in Disney being stuck between a rock and a hard place with political correctness, as their desire to not cast dwarf actors for these roles led to a pretty charged backlash and arguments between actors like Peter Dinklage and George Coppin for taking away the little work in mainstream films that actors with dwarfism can find. Now, the new trailer released a couple months ago does away with all of these actors and replaces them with CGI, kind of defeating the purpose of a live-action remake, but even if you look past that, it still was a year ago, and Disney should have had enough time to stay out of controversy and prepare for a release if Rachel Zegler hadn't come along to ruin it all once again. She posted another text to her Instagram story that read in part, quote, "Okay, that's all. Going on stage for Act 2 now and need to get off my soapbox before I get too heated. Sending love to everyone who needs it today. May we all carry each other through the worst and hold these politicians accountable. I will love through these 4 years the best I can. F Donald Trump." Yes, it's exactly as ironic as you think that is. Rachel Zegler's clearly learned zero lessons for the massive risk the entire franchise has been put in, and I don't even think she cares. And if the lead actor doesn't care, neither will the audience, but perhaps someone sane from her management or publicist reached out to her to make her write an apology, and that's what she did, writing later, By the way, this was written by Disney. Quote, "Hi everyone, I'd like to sincerely apologize for the election post I shared on my Instagram last week. I let my emotions get the best of me. Hatred and anger have caused us to move further and further away from peace and understanding. And I'm sorry I contributed to the negative discourse. This week has been so emotional for so many of us, but I firmly believe that everyone has the right to their own opinion. Even if it differs from my own, I'm committed to contributing positively toward a better tomorrow." Now, YouTuber RK Outpost actually pointed out that here she uses capitalization and punctuation, but usually in her stories or on Instagram, she uses no capitalizations or punctuations. You can look this up. And is it just me, or does this look and sound suspiciously well written and coherent as compared to her typo-ridden political rant the week earlier? It almost reads like a press release of some sorts, as if someone gave it to her to post. I could just be speculating, but let me know what you think. But as of right now, both Rachel herself and Disney seem to have communicated several times that this film is a radical departure from the original, almost to the point of having no real connection or nostalgic value to the audience. It's basically a different film.
You said you were bringing a modern edge to it on stage. What do you mean by that?
I just mean that it's no longer 1937, and we absolutely wrote a Snow White that is
not going to be saved by the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be, and the leader that her late father told her that she could be if she was fearless, fair, brave, and true. And so it's just a really incredible story for, I think, young people everywhere to see themselves in.
Snow White is running for president.
I'm launching my campaign.
And in such a climate, I don't even know if it's a wise decision for Disney to keep sinking more money into this project when it's almost destined to be a dud at the box office. Despite that, it's going to be interesting what eventually happens when the film is slated to release next year, so drop your thoughts in the comments below and share this video across your social media. This film could very well decide whether Disney's financial and creative downfall is saved or accelerated.